Good evening, and you're welcome to Let's Talk About. And Let's Talk About is your midweek Christian programming coming to you from Trinity United Church, Legon, here on the premises of the Trinity Theological Seminary in Legon. On Let's Talk About, we talk about everything about the Christian and everything else that the Christian is involved with and affected by. You know, when you look at the statistics when it comes to vehicles in this country, we are told by the licensing authorities that the most vehicles we have in this country are cars, be they saloon cars, buses, vans, pickup trucks, or whatever the case may be. And so we have significant number of cars on our roads. And if you're looking at the population of this country, if the census is anything to go by, we have close to about 70% of all Ghanaians being Christian. What that means is, on an average, we have about 70% of these vehicles being owned or run by Christians. So it's important that the Christian knows how to navigate the terrain when it comes to vehicle acquisition, its use, and abiding by the law. And so this evening, we are talking about the Christian and road safety. And this evening, I should say, to help me have this conversation, is one who is properly well vexed when it comes to the matters of road safety. He is an assistant planning manager responsible for regulatory inspection and compliance at the National Road Safety Authority in the person of Mr. Ezra Kwanzaa, and he joins us this evening. Mr. Kwanzaa, you're welcome to Let's Talk About.
Thank you.
Great. My name is Benjamin Ofeado. I'm going to be your host from now through till 8 p.m., where we bring the conversations to a close. And we'll be happy to hear from you as well. If you're watching us, you'll be watching us on Facebook or on YouTube on the channels of Trinity United Church, Legon. We would want to hear from you. So drop us your messages, your questions, your suggestions, your contributions on our live stream. Alternatively, you can send us a WhatsApp message on our WhatsApp number 050-1579996. That's 050-1579996. Mr. Kwanzaa, when we talk about road safety, what is it?
Yes, so generally, road safety is whereby we ensure that our roads are safe. Be it a driver, a passenger, a pedestrian, a cyclist, we all have a responsibility, a role to play to ensure safety on our roads. So road safety, we say, is a collective and shared responsibility. So when you wake up in the morning, we all use the road. Whether we're going to school, we're going to work, wherever we are going, we use the roads. And because of this, we all need to play a part to make our roads safe. And that's where the National Road Safety Authority will come in as people who facilitate and then educate people on these things to ensure that our roads are always safe when we are on it.
I heard you mention driver, pedestrian, cyclist. When we talk about road safety, who are the major stakeholders that we need to be considering as part of the process of keeping our roads safe, as you talk about?
Yeah, so the major stakeholders, we have the Road Safety Authority, which is the major stakeholder, the police MTTD. We also have the road sector, the urban roads, the feeder roads, and the Ghana Highway Authority. These are all stakeholders that ensure that our roads are safe.
So aside from the road users, which would be the drivers, the pedestrians, the cyclists, as you talk about the Road Safety Authority, which has some responsibility there, and we'll be talking about that in a bit. The police MTTD to ensure that there is a certain order and enforcement of the road regulations. You also talk about the urban roads and feeder road department, who I suspect will be responsible for ensuring that they are in the right shape. The roads are in the right shape.
Of course.
That's a conversation for a whole different day. We won't go into that detail. But from the point of the National Road Safety Authority, specifically, what's your mandate when it comes to road safety?
Yes, so our mandate is to educate and sensitize the public on road safety. So we do this through schools, through car terminals or lorry terminals, churches, mosques, institutions, wherever we find people who use the road, we go and do this education for them.
Okay. So that's your core mandate, education, sensitization about the importance of keeping our roads safe.
Yes.
And how we can do that.
Of course.
Now, let's talk about, let's break it down this way. We want to get a sense of who even gets to be qualified to use a vehicle on the road. What is the qualification regime for anybody, be they a driver, a cyclist, or even a pedestrian?
Excellent. So if you want to drive, then you must master the act of driving. You need to go through the rudiments. You need to go through training to get your hands on, to have an excellent control of the vehicle, and also have knowledge about the vehicle that you are driving. Apart from that, you also need to have a license that qualifies you to drive. Because without the license, you cannot call yourself a qualified driver. So you can be as skillful as whatever, but if you don't have the qualification, the certification, then you are not a qualified driver.
Mm. So you're saying that if my uncle or my father or my brother or cousin has taught me how to drive, we have a big compound, we've practiced at home for a while, and then he sat me behind the wheel, sitting next to me, we've driven out within our community. I've driven and I've gained the experience. He even led me to even drive outside of our community for some time. Having acquired the skills to drive is not sufficient to have me as a qualified driver.
Yes, because we work by the law. And the law states that before you drive, you must possess a qualified driver's license. So without the license, you could have all the experience, you could have all the necessary things that you need to go through to become a driver. But if you don't have that thing that qualifies you, the license, then you cannot call yourself a qualified driver. So you need to go through the process of acquiring a license, then that will qualify you as a driver.
So in essence, if I'm driving at that point, having the skill, but without the license, I am engaging in an illegality.
That's it. It's not legal, and it's an offense to drive without the license on our roads here in Ghana.
Now that you talk about that, so if I am even being taught how to drive, and we know there are driving schools.
Yes.
And the driving schools are licensed to teach driving. If my brother is teaching me driving, and we are on the street in front of my house, would that also constitute an illegality?
So that's why we have driving schools around, where the people who provide this training are qualified. They are certified to teach driving. That's why when you are learning how to drive, you have an instructor sitting next to you who is certified to teach that driving. So without that, you cannot take the car onto the road and say, I'm learning how to drive. So if you are not even an instructor, but you are a qualified driver who have a license, and you are teaching somebody, then you must always be his instructor, sitting next to that person to ensure that he's doing the right thing on the road. But without you, he cannot go onto the road himself without a license and say, I'm learning how to drive on the road.
So for a learner of necessity, they need to have an instructor with them who could be a licensed driving teacher,
yes,
or a licensed driver.
Of course.
Okay. Now let's flip it. I have heard and read somewhere that being a licensed driver does not necessarily make you a qualified driver. From what I'm hearing you say, for you to be licensed, you need to have acquired a license.
Excellent.
To put it as simple as that. So why does my acquiring of the license not suffice to make me a qualified driver?
Yeah, so there are so many people who are having a license today in Ghana who did not go through the actual process of acquiring the license. You know, we are in Ghana, and anything is possible here in our country. So because you have the means to pay for it, you may be sleeping in the comfort of your home, and then somebody will just bring the license to you. Meanwhile, you haven't gone through the training. You haven't gone through the test. Sometimes you even need to conduct an eye test. You haven't done all that. But then they bring the license to you, you get up, you sit behind the wheels, and then you drive in town. You are a hazard to people because you haven't gone through the training. All the tests that is required for you to obtain the license, you haven't gone through them. But you are holding the license. And if the police stops you, show it to them, I have a license, I'm qualified, and you are asked to go. But as you are driving on the road, remember that there are so many things that you are going to face on the road, so many hazards. How are you going to surmount those hazards on the road? So you need to really go through all the rudiments of acquiring a license before you can call yourself a qualified driver. But without that, you may be having the license, but you are not a qualified driver.
So what I'm hearing you say is, for you to be a licensed driver, you need to be qualified in the skill of driving. You need to have the knowledge as well. And you need to have built the attitude for it.
Excellent.
However, having acquired these three elements in and of themselves, although necessary, are not sufficient for you to be considered a qualified driver. You need the license.
You need a license.
But having the license by itself, without going through the rudiments necessary for acquiring the license, also does not make you a qualified driver. So it is an and situation where you require both.
Both.
And not either.
No, both, before you can become a qualified driver.
So if somebody wants to acquire a license, and maybe a young person is listening to the conversation today, he's never driven, or maybe somebody much older but has never driven before and wants to acquire a license to make them qualified and licensed, certified as well, typically what's supposed to be the process?
So the process is you go through the DVLA, Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority. They are the major stakeholders that you can get a license from here in Ghana. And you must be 18 years old to acquire a license to drive a private car. If you want to be a commercial driver, then you must be 25 years old to drive a commercial vehicle or get a commercial license. So you go to the DVLA, and they will take you through the process. Sometimes you go through the process and you don't qualify. They will fail you until you...
Will they fail you or you will fail?
You will fail. you are going to fail if you don't. You go through the process and you don't qualify. You are going to fail. You need to go back and go through all the processes that you need to go through to qualify again. Go and get a test done again, and if you qualify, then they are going to issue you with the license. So DVLA are the sole agents in Ghana who provides license for anybody who wants to drive any vehicle on our roads. And we have category of licenses that they issue. If you are a cyclist, you go for A motorcyclist.
Okay.
If you are going for a saloon car, you go for a B. And then the grades go on from up to E or F for category of vehicles that are available for you to drive.
The way your hands were going up all the way to
all the way to,
it means that once you are getting towards the higher,
we have
the higher letters,
yes, we have different vehicles that we drive. We have trucks, we have bulldozers, earth-moving machines, and all that. You need license to drive any of them. Yeah. So if it's a saloon car, if it's a truck, if it's an earth-moving machine, there is a license that you need to be able to drive that vehicle.
Interesting. So the fact that you can drive a Toyota Corolla doesn't mean you can drive every car in this country.
We went for an inspection recently, and school bus inspection.
Okay.
And for buses, you need D to drive a bus. But when we inspected their license, most of them were carrying license B on them, using it to drive a bus, which is wrong. They don't qualify to drive that vehicle, but because they think they have the license, and because of lack of education, they think once you have the card to show, it means you can drive any vehicle, which is very wrong.
So they are a hazard to all other road users by virtue of handling a car for which they don't have the license.
Yes. they are a hazard to all road users.
Now let's talking about hazards. So let's see, the person has dealt with the licensing regime. They now have the certification. They are qualified to drive. They will be driving a vehicle. Let's talk about a car.
Okay.
Saloon, SUV,
Yeah.
whichever, whatever, a private vehicle, for instance, or even a commercial vehicle. We learned that you don't just sit behind the wheel and move.
Yeah.
Typically, what should a driver go through by way of process before starting their vehicle when, say, they are beginning their day?
Excellent question. So, before you begin your day, we have what we call the pre-trip inspection. Every driver, before you move your car in the morning, you want to do this pre-trip inspection. What they call the circle of safety. You go around the car and observe the car, inspect everything on the car. So you want to look at your tires, whether they are properly inflated or not. You want to look at your lights, whether they are working. Sometimes, because of the nature of our roads, when you hit a pothole, some of the lights goes off. You are not even aware. So you need to check all of them. Check your fluids in the morning, the water, the oil, all the oils, the water in the car. Check your wipers, are they working? Your horn, your brakes especially, are they working? All these things you need to do before you even start the car.
So at this point, the car is stationary.
It's stationary. So you need to check all these things before you enter. So you do what you can do from the outside of the car. So checking the tires, the brake, the lights and all that. Then when you get into the car, then you check the wipers, the lights and all that to ensure that everything is working properly before you hit the road.
So you are saying before I move my car every morning or whichever time I'm starting my day, of necessity, I need to open my bonnet.
Yes, you need to check your fluids level. Because there are some cars that they are always in good shape. So you might want to check it maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks. But there are some cars that are also very old that you really need to check every day, because these are the cars that we always have problem with on the road because we don't check them. Sometimes we'll be running low on fuels, fluids in the car. We might not know, and before we realize, maybe your brake fluid is gone down. Now here's a situation, you need to apply brakes, and you slam the brakes and the car is still moving. So we need to make sure that we are taking these things seriously and checking all the time. Otherwise, we may be causing accidents on our roads all the time.
Wow. Okay, so that's what you call a pre-trip inspection. So before you start your trip, you need to go around your vehicle. You do
the circle of safety.
The circle of safety.
Yeah.
That's what you call it.
Yeah.
And then so you check everything on the outside, and then you get into your fluids. Then you come and sit in your vehicle.
And even when you open your bonnets as well, there are so many belts in the engine that you need to check. Some may have expired and may be cracking. You need to check all that to make sure that you replace them. Because sometimes you may be going and your fan belt will go off onto the road and your car start overheating and all that because you are not paying attention. You may be hearing sound in the car all the time. Your air conditioning belt, your fan belt is giving you warning that I've expired, replace me. But if we don't pay attention, you may be going and it might go off, and then that may cost you. And then maybe other vehicles around you, even pedestrians around you, you might end up killing people.
I've heard somebody say that when they start their car and they hear sounds in it, they roll up their windows and turn on the AC so they don't have to hear it. But what you are saying, that is not safe.
That is not safe at all.
We need to pay attention to
any sound you hear in the car. I mean, as a driver, you need to be aware of your driving environment. whenever you are driving, especially on the dashboard, look out for lights that come on the dashboard.
Okay.
Whenever you are driving and you see a light come up, please quickly check into the mechanic shop and see why the light is on. It's a warning signal. And because the light doesn't just come up for anything, it comes up for a reason. So once the light comes up, you need to check and see why. If the technical people will tell you why, and then if there's the need for you to do something about it, you do about it.
Unless, of course, your sensors are faulty, for which reason you still even have to check the car.
Yes.
To get those sensors fixed.
Excellent.
So now we're on the road.
Sure.
We've hit the road. We are going. I mean, what is supposed to be our attitude hitting the road? You may typically start driving from maybe a community on a community street, and then you may eventually get onto a main street. You may be eventually getting into maybe a highway and all of that, motorway. Yeah. What is supposed to be our attitude at these different levels of roads that we have?
Yeah, so the rules of the road is key. The road, you see, there has rules that we need to observe. We need to pay attention to. And first thing you need to look out for when you are driving is the fact that you want to check your speed. Yes. We have speed limits on every road that we drive on. So for instance, if you are driving in a crowded place where we have schools, mosques, churches, marketplace, we have a driving speed limit that you have to adhere to, and that is 30 kilometers per hour.
30?
30. You don't go beyond 30 in such areas. When you are driving on an urban road, the speed limit is 50. You don't go beyond that. Then when you hit the highway, let's say the N1, then you are supposed to do between 80 and 90. The only road in Ghana you can do 100 kilometers per hour on is the motorway, the Accra Tema motorway. That is...
That 19.5 kilometers.
Yes, that's the only road in Ghana you can do 100 kilometers on. But even that, look at the state of the motorway today. And tell me if you can do 100 on that road.
So you are saying the motorway is not fit for purpose?
It's not fit for purpose.
Okay.
It's no more a motorway. And there are even roads in Ghana today which are far better than the motorway.
Okay.
But the fact that the rule says you can do 100 on the motorway doesn't mean that when you hit it, you ignore all the potholes and all that and still do your 100. At that point, you really need to be very careful and try to drive according to how the road is. So if you are seeing potholes on the motorway, you need to reduce your speed. And for me, I think even doing 80 on the motorway is too high a speed to go. Yes. Yeah, because it's not in good shape. Yeah. So you need to check your speed. Now, when you are on the road as well, you need to mind pedestrians. Because we are all users of the road. Even animals are users of the road. That's why sometimes when you are driving on the road furniture, you see cattle crossing, yeah. You see wild animal crossing. When you go to Shire Hills, you see monkey crossing. All these are telling you there are other road users you need to look out for. You are not the only person using the road. So you need to be very careful when you see all these signs telling you what to do on the road. The road furniture is actually talking to you. You don't always need the police on the road to do the right thing. We have all the road furniture, all the signs, the traffic lights, all the no U-turns and all that. You need to pay attention to them when you are driving. Overtaking, wrongful overtaking. This is a very serious thing here in our country.
Before we come to the issue of overtaking, and so we are talking about speed.
Speed.
So in essence, what you are saying is, as far as Ghana is concerned, as things stand today, there isn't any road that any driver should drive beyond 100 kilometers per hour on.
The only road that is certified for any driver to drive 100 kilometers per hour on is the Accra Tema motorway.
So even that one, the limit is 100 kilometers per hour.
That's the limit, the highest.
So nobody should go beyond 100 kilometers per hour.
Yes. But what do we see today?
See.
That's where people test the capacity of their cars.
They are testing.
Yes. So I mean, that's the law,
Okay.
and we need to adhere to it. Because we are recording unnecessary crashes on our roads, very avoidable ones, and all this is due to driver errors.
And then you were talking about the road furniture.
The road furniture.
I mean, I'm sure somebody is, do we have chairs and tables on the road? I mean, if you could clarify when you say
So when
the
we,
road
when we
furniture.
talk about the road furniture, we are talking about all the markings, all the line markings on the road, all the signs, all the posts you see, the traffic lights, all the warning signs you see, all the informatory signs you see, all the regulatory and prohibitory signs you see on the road. All these come together to form the road furniture in Ghana.
So the markings on the road, the signs, the lights, everything
Everything.
come together to form the road furniture. And these are supposed to be protective furniture for all road users.
Excellent. So these science tells you what to do when you're on the road. So if you ignore them, then you are putting your life and others' lives at stake. Like I said earlier, some drivers becomes disciplined only when they see policemen on the road. So even when they are driving, they are not in seat belts. But when they see the police, then you see they quickly want to strap up. And these are some of the things we need to look out for when we are driving. Seat belt is a lifesaver. We are not saying that when you wear your seat belt, you are not going to have an accident. But in case there is an accident, the chances that you are not going to die is higher. So it protects you and every passenger in the car. So talking of seat belt, it's not just the driver that is supposed to wear the seat belt. Because sometimes even somebody is sitting in front, he doesn't see the need to wear it. Even when you are sitting in the back, you are supposed to wear the seat belt. You know, sometimes when crashes occur, the deaths, we record so much deaths because people are not wearing seat belts. I've done reports on accidents or crashes on our roads where the death rate was high because people were flying in the bus when the car crashed because they were not in seat belt. You see, when a car is moving at, let's say, 80 kilometers per hour, it means we are sitting at one place, but we are going at the same speed of that car. So the car has brakes. But what are your brakes? That is the question. So assuming a driver is going that speed, 80 kilometers per hour, and maybe an animal crosses the driver and he slams the brake, what's going to happen? The car will stop. But you, are you going to stop?
Because you are still moving at
You are
that
still
80
moving at that
kilometers.
same speed. So eventually you fly. That's why you see so many crashes and you see people on the road, literally, because they were not in seat belts, so they couldn't brake themselves, so to speak. So they had to fly out of the car and hit their head on the road and die. Or any objects in the car, and then they lose their lives. So we want to use this platform to educate all that the seat belt is not there, it's there for a reason. So when you sit in the car, you make sure you wear the seat belt because it's a lifesaver. It's going to save you in case there's a crash. That's why when the driver slams the brake, the car comes to an abrupt stop, the seat belt also what?
Will firm up.
Yeah, it firms up. And as if you are so tired that you want to release yourself, but that is your brake in the car when the car is moving at that speed. So it's very important that we all try to use the seatbelt when we are
in the vehicle.
In the vehicle.
And
Again, the overtakings. You know, when you look at the road line markings, there are some roads that have a solid line, a white solid line. But you see drivers overtaking on that solid line, which is wrong. whenever you are driving and you see a white solid line, it means you cannot overtake here. You can only overtake where we have the short lines, the short dash lines. That is where you can overtake. We are permitted to overtake. But we see drivers overtaking anywhere, in curves, on hill, and this is wrong. So you need to have, we talked about knowledge, driving knowledge, to become a qualified driver. And if you don't have this knowledge, you hit the street and you are a hazard to everybody on the road. So these are things that when we put our car on the road and we are in motion, we need to check. We need to pay attention to. You know, people think when you can speed, that makes you the best driver in the world. But you see, sometimes when you are that inexperienced, you think speeding is everything. So as long as your car is a good car and can go some miles, you want to stretch your legs and test the car and prove to everybody that you are the best driver. But that is wrong. You need to observe all the speed limits on our road. If you don't observe them, it's an offense. And it's punishable by law. So we need to pay attention to our speed.
You can be fined and you can be put to jail.
Yes, yeah, both. Or you can have both.
Interesting. And if you're just joining this, let's talk about, we are talking about the Christian and road safety. And we have Mr. Ezra Kwanzaa, who is an assistant planning manager with the National Road Safety Authority, responsible for regulatory inspection and compliance. And we've started a conversation. It's already getting very heated up. We've looked at the licensing regime. We've looked at the pre-trip inspection, what we are calling the safety circle or the circle of safety. And then now we are on the road. We are going for a quick break. When we are back, we are still on the road. We'll be looking at other elements of being on the road, the further do's and don'ts, and how we are going to ensure that we do not pose as a hazard to other road users. This let's talk about. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
With the growing challenges of life in light of both global and domestic development, the Christian is faced with the difficult task of balancing survival within a secular system and at the same time living a Christian life that pleases their Maker. It is for this reason that we need to have frank conversations on the many issues of life through the Christian lens. So, we bring to you Let's Talk About. On Let's Talk About, we talk about health, career, dating, marriage, family, divorce, politics, finance, and all the issues of life that the Christian is confronted with on a daily basis. Join us this and every Wednesday on the YouTube and Facebook pages of Trinity United Church Legon, and let's talk about life as Christians. With the growing challenges of life in light of both global and domestic development, the Christian is faced with the difficult task of balancing survival within a secular system and at the same time living a Christian life that pleases their Maker. It is for this reason that we need to have frank conversations on the many issues of life through the Christian lens. So, we bring to you Let's Talk About. On Let's Talk About, we talk about health, career, dating, marriage, family, divorce, politics, finance, and all the issues of life that the Christian is confronted with on a daily basis. Join us this and every Wednesday on the YouTube and Facebook pages of Trinity United Church Legon, and let's talk about life as Christians.
This is Let's Talk About, and we are coming to you from Trinity United Church here on the campus of Trinity Theological Seminary in Legon, Accra. Today we are talking about the Christian and road safety. And so far we've looked at before you even sit behind a wheel, you requiring a license, you requiring the necessary certification to get behind a wheel. Also, the pre-trip measures that you need to take before you even sit behind your steering wheel. The very things you need to do once you are setting out. Your seat belt being there as a protective tool for yourself. And then once you get onto the roads, we've talked about speeding, speed limit for different types of routes as we have in this country. And we are talking about issues of overtaking and all of that. So we've gotten into the attitude realm. We've spoken about having the skill, having the knowledge, but now we are dealing a lot more with the attitude element, which is the third leg of the tripod. And we have Mr. Ezra Kwanzaa, who is an assistant planning manager responsible for regulatory inspection and compliance with the National Road Safety Authority. Mr. Kwanzaa, once again, thank you. So we are on the attitude issue.
Yes.
The issue of distractions while driving. You know, in fact, there's a song, a very popular song, which talks about na who calls them. It be the telephone or the fine lady.
Yes.
The use of gadgets while driving. What is the position of the law when it comes to the use of electronic devices when driving?
Yeah, so distracted driving, the law states clear that it's an offense. So we want to avoid using gadgets when we are driving. You see, when you are driving, you need to have full concentration on what you are doing. That's why we use all our senses in driving. So when you are driving and you lose one of your senses, it can be very detrimental. So we always want to concentrate. That period that you use to pick up a call, that period can wait. Because, you see, driving, if you accept to drive, you're accepting full responsibility of whatever might happen to you as a driver. So if you have a call to make, or there's a call coming through, you want to wait. And interestingly, not even calls, but people will go to the extent of even doing video calls when you are driving, which is very irritating. Sometimes when you are driving on the road and you see a fellow driver doing that, but you can't stop him because you are in motion. It's very sad to see people do that. They are not paying attention to any rule, any law that binds us when we are driving. And this distracted driving is causing a lot of havoc on our roads. Because, you see, when you lose concentration for a split second, it can cost you so much. So we want to use this platform to advise all who drive that please, when you are driving and you think there's a call coming through you want to pick, now technology has made it easy for us. If you want to use a Bluetooth, that's fine. One that will come out of your car speakers for you to hear and talk whilst you are driving. But to switch attention and pick the phone and put it there and talk whilst you are driving is very wrong and it's punishable by law as well. And I wanted to touch on the traffic lights.
Okay.
Yes, whilst on the road. And this is one major offense that drivers are always involved in when it comes to the traffic light. Some drivers do not really understand what the difference between the yellow and the red light.
When we were children, we were being told red means go, yellow means get ready, green means go.
Yes.
And the get ready, we interpret it as get ready to go.
Yes. So, you see, when you go for a driving test at the DVLA, they give you that small booklet, the Ghana Highway Code.
Yeah.
And in that highway code, it clearly states that the yellow, when you are driving and you see yellow or the amber on, it means stop at the stop line. So the yellow doesn't mean
speed and cross the line.
Speed and cross the line or get ready to go. So whilst you are coming, you see before the red, from green, before the red comes on, the yellow will flash and then the red will come. But that is where drivers, when they see the yellow flashing, they want to quickly cross before the red comes. But the law says when you cross that yellow, it's as if you have crossed the red line, and it's an offense. So when you see the yellow, it actually means stop at the stop. At every traffic light, there's a white line, the stop line. You stop at the stop line and wait until the green comes on before you move. So crossing the yellow line, it's as if you have crossed the red line, and the punishment are the same. The only situation in which you can cross the yellow line is when it was green, but you entered the box before the yellow came on. When it happens this way, you can still go. But when you are coming and you see the yellow, it means you have to stop at the stop line.
So once you see the amber, you need to start
slowing down.
Engaging your brake.
Slowing down. But unfortunately, it's only here in Ghana that when people see the yellow, they speed up, which is very wrong. So we want to use this platform again to educate drivers.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see them arguing with the police that I didn't jump the red light.
It was yellow.
It was yellow.
It was yellow.
Yes, I didn't jump the red light. But you've actually jumped the red light. And that is what the Ghana Highway Code states.
So that's punishable.
That's punishable.
Yes.
And when you are at the traffic light, especially at an intersection,
yeah,
and the green shows up, and you want to move, you see, sometimes drivers are in a hurry so much that even before the green shows up, they've started moving.
They've started, yes.
Because they know the green is coming up. So when the green light shows up, then they step on it and they go. But you see, when you're at an intersection or a crossroad and the green shows up, you don't just move. In your head, you want to count 3 seconds. So when it's green, you count 1, 2, 3 before you move.
There'll be somebody horning behind you.
Not even somebody horning behind you. Forget about who is horning behind you. But you see, because it's an intersection, a driver from the opposite direction is also trying to cross the yellow line with some speed. So if you, who has the right to go when the green shows up, you don't wait for a while and you step up, you might meet that car in the box.
And that brings me to the next issue, which is defensive driving. A lot of people talk about defensive driving. What is it, and what is supposed to be a driver's approach when it comes to the concept of defensive driving?
Sure. So defensive driving is driving so as to protect the space around you in your car. So you want to ensure that you are protecting your car, yourself, and other cars around you, and even pedestrians that are using the road. You are driving in such a manner that you protect all those people. And that is defensive driving, protecting the space around you when you are driving. So when you are driving as a defensive driver, sometimes you even have the right to go. But because of the action of others, you want to allow them to go before you go.
Because there's a concept of right of way.
Right of way. But somebody, you have the right of way, but somebody is coming. He doesn't care whether you have the right of way or not. Are you going to say, it's my right of way, so I'll go? You might end up crashing.
All things are lawful.
All things
but not all things are profitable.
Sometimes somebody, and these days you see these trotros, when they want to cut in, they just stretch their hand. And then once they stretch their hand,
they expect you to.
No matter what you do, so are you going to say, I'm not going to allow him because it's my right of way? He's cutting you. As a defensive driver, you step on the brake to allow him to go, and then you follow. So, you see, you need to use your own initiative as a defensive driver when you are driving. So you don't want to say, it's my right, so I have to do it. No. By so doing, you are endangering your life and the life of maybe passengers or pedestrians or even other drivers on the road. So being defensive means protecting the space around you so that you don't get into a crash.
And doing so could also mean you controlling even that which is your right.
Excellent.
While on the road.
Yes.
That's interesting. Still talking about distractions. And, you know, there are all kinds of signages on the roads that we drive.
Yeah.
And all of these signages are competing for your attention as a road user. And, I mean, there are all kinds of distractions external. We spoke about the distractions internal, like you getting a phone call, so your device and all. What is supposed to be a driver's approach when they are behind the wheels when it comes to all the things outside that are competing potentially for their attention?
Sure. So, like I mentioned earlier, all these are part of the road furniture. And all these signs are communicating with the driver when you're on the road. So when you take, like, for example, the road signs on the road, we have 3 categories. We have the warning signs, we have the informatory signs, and we also have the prohibitory and then the mandatory signs. And the warning signs are normally in a triangle with a red arrows, red background.
Yeah.
And it's telling you there is something ahead of you. So for instance, if there's a speed hump ahead of you, 50 meters before the actual speed hump, you see that triangle telling you there's a speed hump ahead of you. So the moment you see that, you need to start slowing down. And then you go and then you meet the one in the blue background, which is telling this is the actual thing.
Yeah.
So every sign in a triangle is a warning sign telling you there's something ahead of you, slow down. So when you see it and you ignore it, you go and before you realize your car is in the mid-air because the speed at which you are driving, you bump and then the car is hanging in the air.
But you see, you're even talking about the road furniture.
Sure.
I'm talking about advertisers.
Okay.
I'm talking about all of those
Distractions, yeah.
that are seeking to get your attention as a road user. What's supposed to be your approach?
Yeah,
as a driver?
As a driver, like I said, you want to focus on what you are doing. You want to scan the road properly. Long distance scan and then near scan when you are driving. Some of these advertising boards are very catchy. And if you're not careful, you tend to look at it. You tend to read them. You tend to watch them. It might distract your attention from driving. So you need to keep your focus on what you are doing so that you don't get distracted. There are sometimes you see some advertising boards as well that are blocking the view of drivers so huge that you don't even see there's a turning here or there is a signage here that I need to adhere to because it's blocked everything that has been put there. And this is something that we are working with these advertising agencies to ensure that these advertising boards, they put them at the right place. And recently we went in town trying to, take some out of the road because they were blocking the vision of drivers on the road. So we are still in talks with them to ensure that they do the right thing. They put them at the appropriate place that will not block the view of drivers and distract them. But back to the driver driving on the road and seeing all these adverts and stuff. Your main focus in driving is to keep your focus on the road. Yes, so that you are not distracted by these things. And whilst you do that as well, you want to make sure that the driving which you are driving is all that you are focusing on and not any other thing. Otherwise, the slightest distraction might cause an accident. So we need to keep our focus when we are driving because these days there's so many advertising agencies around. Some are even motion adverts.
Exactly.
And if you're not careful, you switch your attention to it, and before you realize.
And the truth is, aside from the billboards which are themselves advertising, there are human beings who are advertising all over the place themselves as well. We have some comments coming through from some of our viewers. Albrighter Siedu comes through and says, all the guys in Trinity must pay attention. I know he knows where he's coming from with this one. Mr. George Siedu comes through and says, very good education. My question is on the choice of lanes while driving. I would like to know if the speed lane concept works in Ghana. I'm referring to the inner lane reserved for overtaking. We drive on the motorway and you see these slow-moving trucks driving in what I have known to be the fast lane. If such a law or rule works in Ghana, why is the law enforcement not arresting them? Or is there no law as such?
In fact, there's a law as such. Speed lanes are for overtaking. And
which ones are the speed lanes?
the inner lane.
So if it is a dual carriage or a 3-lane
Yeah.
or 2-lane
Yeah.
to each side, the very inner one, the one closer to the median,
To the median is a
is
speed lane.
reserved for speeding
And
and
for
for overtaking.
overtaking.
Okay.
Yes, so it's interesting, this question, because we see a lot of them on our roads. You see these trucks, heavily loaded, cannot even climb the hill smoothly. They're literally crawling on the street. But then they will take the speed lane and cause traffic. You see, elsewhere,
And when you tell them that, like, well, they will tell you, fly over.
in other jurisdictions, you don't drive in a speed lane. If you are driving in a speed, it means you are going some speed limit to drive in a speed lane. Otherwise, we all drive in the middle lane or the outer lane.
You know the amazing thing I found out being a driver for a few years now? Somebody is joining a dual carriage road. And they are coming from, they are at rest, they are parked, and they are joining.
Yeah.
And they don't join the outer lane, they join and cross to the inner
To the
lane.
inner lane, yes. We see it all the time. But that is where education and sensitization becomes very important. And we've been doing this, like I said from the beginning, we've been doing this, go to institutions, go to lorry terminals to educate them on all these things. Oh, we've had very good education, oh, we got here. But let him hit the road and see.
So the question is really around compliance.
Compliance, yes.
And then
So-
also, what do you call it? What's the word that the police, what their work is supposed to be?
Enforcement.
Enforcement. What is happening to that regime of enforcement?
Yes, so the police is supposed to enforce those laws to ensure that sanity prevails on our roads. However, you know the country in which we are living. I don't want to talk so much on that.
That's such a sad conclusion to the question. We have other questions coming through. Eliklim Ablaji Kunu says, are there standards on how bright headlights should be? Some lights, especially the white ones, are so blinding.
Very good question. I don't know if our viewers have observed the National Road Safety Authority. In recent times, we've been on the road clamping down on illegal lights. When you go into the law, the LI 2180, Regulation 66 talks about illegal lights. These China LED bulbs that drivers buy and fit on their cars. That blind drivers on the road and causes accidents.
China for Oshi.
You see, we call them killer lights. The law says that every car must have 4 lights. The headlights and then the fog lights. These are the only lights that are supposed to be on the car. But we go and buy these LED lights and add them to the lights that we have. And then when we throw them, we blind everybody, every driver on the streets. And then people run their cars into the bushes, into the ditches. They hit the shoulders of the road and all that. And when you come to our office and you come and see the amount of lights that we've parked in our stores, but these same drivers, you remove them, the next day, they go and buy them. When you ask them why, they tell you when they are driving in the night, they don't see. Why don't they see? Because they complain other drivers are throwing their lights on them, so they also throw back.
And that's also because there aren't street lights on our roads.
This conversation is getting out of my jurisdiction.
No, but you see, let's be practical around this.
I agree. I agree.
From 6:30 p.m. in Accra, which does not typically have fog, and so visibility, all things being equal, is supposed to be reasonably good.
Good.
It's bad.
It's very
even
bad.
here. Then how much more someone driving in areas like the mountains where it's very foggy and all of that. So, I mean, some of the practicalities. How should drivers interact in situations like that so that much as they are trying to improve their visibility, they don't also hamper the visibility of other road users?
Yeah, so you see, even normally when you are driving at night, you are not supposed to even use the highlight. You're only supposed to use your dim. But look at the lights they are using now. It's even brighter than the highlights on the car. But these same drivers will tell you when they are driving at night, they don't see. If you don't see, it means you need to work on your old lights. Maybe the bulbs are weak, or maybe the glass itself is dirty.
Yeah.
So your light cannot shine through well for you to see the road. And that is what they fail to do. And they go and get these LED bulbs and put it on it. So we've been clamping down on them. We've been enforcing, removing them. But you remove it today, the next day you see them fixing it back.
Unfortunately, because we don't have too much time, we'd want to move on to a few other things because they are very important. And you talk about the people checking their lights if probably they've become weak over the time or they need to clean their glass.
Yeah.
That brings me to the issue around maintenance.
Yeah.
The maintenance regime. But just to mention that Stephen Agalik, one of our viewers, comes to and says, can our guest explain to us in detail what the traffic light rule is? Red, amber, and green lights, because there are situations when you drive through the amber light, the police will arrest you. I think Mr. Kwanzaa explained that, indicating that when it's red, stop. When it's amber, it means stop on the line, especially when there's an intersection. Just stop on the line because it's get ready to stop. But when it's green, now count at least 3 seconds before you move as part of defensive driving. So I hope I was able to summarize it. Yes. Another question comes to Joseph Jemfi, comes to and says, kindly tell us the hazards associated with overloading of a vehicle.
Insecure loading.
And stress again on overtaking.
Yeah, so insecure loading. This lies in the remit of the police MTTD. They are supposed to check to ensure that the load that a car or the truck is carrying is the optimum load of the car. You know, every commercial vehicle, you see the net weight and the gross weight on it. But in actual fact, the load that they are carrying is more than what the car is supposed to carry. And it affects the car and it affects our roads as well. That's why I always have a problem with trucks that coming from Mali, Burkina Faso, into our country to come and cut their goods at the Tema port and go back. It's interesting, Ghana, we are so lenient. You see, when they get into our country, they overload. And then they end up destroying our roads.
Yes.
Then they get to the border. Do you know what they do when they get to their border? They call another truck, meet them, split the load.
Before they enter.
Because their laws are so strict.
And they are enforced.
They enforce it. That when you are carrying loads that of excess weight to the car, the truck, it means you end up destroying the roads, and so you can be arrested and prosecuted. But they do that here freely. We allow them, pass.
And you know, I drove just about 3 weeks ago to Kumasi and back. And somewhere last week, I drove to Abetifi and back. And so I had to engage the Accra-Kumasi road twice within a space of 2 weeks. And you see how the road, which is tarred, asphalted at certain points, have literally melted in because of the kind of weight,
the weight
that is plying on it. and you use a place like the Accra Tema motorway, you see there are gantries there which are supposed to protect overhead, bridges and all of those things. And some of these gantries have been hit by weight above a certain height.
Yeah.
What is the regulation around the height of weight that is loaded for any particular vehicle?
It's clearly indicated. Sometimes when you get to these gantries, you see the height written on it, maybe 5 meters. Recently, they put one on the motorway, but it's been destroyed.
Yes.
By a truck.
Yes.
Which has overloaded the truck to a height, I don't know.
When you look at the N1, for instance, underneath a number of the bridges, there have been scratches to them and breaks to some of these things.
Recently,
and they destroy the roads.
A truck got stuck at the Achimota overhead bridge because of the load.
What is the maximum height?
It's always written in. Some are 5 meters.
Okay.
It's always written on the bridge when you get there. The maximum I've seen is 5 meters.
You see, we don't want the person to get to the bridge before they are finding out.
So that's why
So
the authorities should check.
Okay.
Before the person moves out of the harbor or wherever he cut his goods, you need to make sure that the height of the load is not up to that 5 meters. So that when he gets to the bridge, he can go underneath safely. But we allow, the enforcement here is very weak, I'm sorry to say.
So how are you collaborating from the National Road Safety Authority's point of view?
So from our point of view,
Police MTGD?
when we see such things, we report. Recently, I don't know if you heard it in the news, our board chairman arrested a truck at airport, Shangri-La, and marched him into the MTGD at the airport police station because it was heavily loaded. We report these things to our stakeholder, the police, to deal with them. So it's up to the police to crack the whip.
I think the police may be the next stakeholders that will be bringing it to sit in the chair that you are right now.
So that they can answer those questions.
This becomes very difficult. Well, George Chumesiedu comes back and says, again on the issue of use of phones, we see even the law enforcement officers doing it, which does not make it right. And my question is, why are they not arresting people violating this? It appears you may not be able to answer it.
Yeah, but usually they arrest people.
Okay.
Yeah, they arrest people when they see you on the phone whilst you are driving. But maybe for them, maybe it's part of the job. It's an emergency call. They need to pick it. But then, when they come here, they will explain it better.
And, just to mention that production has allowed us some further extension so that we're able to cover the subject matter properly. We've been talking a lot about the driver. One of the biggest culprits when it comes to road accidents are motorcyclists.
Sure.
When you go to the accident and emergency ward of a place like Korle Bu, most of the people who are coming in there are cyclists. Are the rules different for motorcyclists from those that are for drivers of cars?
The rules are no different. It's the same rules that apply to every road user. Unfortunately, when it comes to our motorcyclists, maybe it's the education that has not gone down well with them. But in recent times, they are even improving, because these days when I'm driving around town, I realize that when the red light comes on, they stop. Before, it's red and they'll all be crossing. And they don't observe any road regulation at all, especially even the wearing of helmets.
Good.
They don't even adhere to it. And if I show you the stats, and I show you how much cyclists or motorcyclists are contributing to the CIDs, the crashes, injuries, and death on our roads, it's staggering. And gradually, we are educating. Now, motorcycle is the order of the day. Everybody gets up and buys a cycle. So many of them are riding without even licenses.
So they are supposed to be licensed as well?
Yes. I mentioned from the onset that if you are a rider, you need a license A.
We have the three-tired vehicles, the Pragia.
They are all classified as motors.
Yeah.
Yes. And they are all supposed to be licensed before they hit them.
So the motorcyclist with the 2 tires
Yes.
is required to wear a helmet.
Helmet.
Is the one who's riding the Pragya also required to wear a
Yes,
helmet?
it's also considered as a motor. So he's also supposed to wear a helmet.
So
and
are those who are in the cabin of the Pragya also required to be wearing the helmets?
It's only, I think Pragya is for just cutting goods. Is it the Abobo?
No. So you've not seen the yellow one?
Oh, the yellow one.
Yes.
Yeah, they are all supposed to be, because when you are riding a motorcycle,
Yeah.
the pillion, the one who sits behind the rider, must also wear the helmet. So if Pragya is considered as a motor, then if the rider is wearing a helmet, every passenger must wear a helmet.
Interesting.
Unfortunately, the Pragya business is not, what do you call it, legal now. It's not legalized now. Maybe when it's legalized, then all these facets of wearing helmet and all that would then be introduced. But now whatever they are doing now is illegal, because there's no law that says that those tricycles should be used to carry passengers.
Oh, so they are not legal to be used as commercial
vehicles, yes.
Interesting. Well, still on cyclists, Stephen Agali comes back and says, which part of the road are motorcyclists to ride their motorbikes on? In most cases, they are riding exactly in front of your vehicle. Are they supposed to be riding in front, the same lanes as the cars, in the lines that separate the lanes, or there's supposed to be a dedicated lane for the motorcyclists?
So, ideally, there's supposed to be a dedicated lane for motorcyclists. When you go to other jurisdictions, you see the roads. We have lanes for motorcyclists and even cyclists and pedestrians. Here in Ghana, the riders are not supposed to be riding on the line, as we see, and they be tooting their horns and all that. They are supposed to use the road as every user uses it. So if there is a lane and the cyclist can ride in front of the car. But because we are so impatient here in Ghana, that's why when you are riding or cycling in Ghana, it's so dangerous. Because the drivers don't respect the riders or the cyclists. The reason why you see them riding on the line markings, but that's not supposed to be where they should be riding at. They should be riding on the street, in the lanes. So that if you are a driver and you are following a motorcyclist, you are supposed to be patient and follow him until there's a chance for you to overtake or turn to where else you want to go. But there is no rule that motorcyclists, when they see a car coming, they should give the car that space to pass.
Because of time again, we've not spoken at all about pedestrians.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to crossing of roads. What is supposed to be the pedestrian's attitude? You talk about, for instance, the driver, once it's green, they need to count about 3 seconds before they move. Once they see the yellow, once it's blinking, they need to start engaging their brakes, and then they need to be stopping before the line. Once it's red, they stop. What is supposed to be the pedestrian's approach when it comes to engaging with our roads?
Yes, so pedestrians have a role to play as well. Sometimes when a pedestrian is knocked down, we blame the driver. But sometimes the pedestrians are to be blamed for causing that accident. Pedestrians, there are dedicated crossing points for pedestrians. So we have the zebra crossing, we have the pelican crossing, we have the footbridge that they are supposed to use.
What's the pelican crossing?
You know that traffic light that you press it, and then there's this human being in it, and it gets to a point when it's green, you see him walking in the light. That's the pelican. Yeah. So you press for it to stop other cars so that you can cross.
Okay.
Yes. And then you have the footbridge as well.
Yeah.
But pedestrians are always in a hurry. So they look here and look there, and then they run and cross the road. But even when you are crossing the road, you don't even run. Look at what is happening in Medina now.
Oh, God.
Chaos. When you get to Medina Zongo Junction, right now, you see what's happening there. Footbridge have been provided for safe crossing. But they ignore it and complain that it's a long distance to cross from one end to the other using the footbridge. Yesterday, there was a report on it on TV, and I was watching. One pedestrian was interviewed. And he was asking the interviewer whether if he knows how it feels to have arthritis and walking all that distance, or when you have pressure and you are climbing that stairs, you end up dying. So they will cross the street. And I was like, running to cross the street and using the footbridge, if you have pressure, which one can bring your pressure up? So pedestrians also need to be educated as to the use of the road, especially when it comes to crossing, or even when it comes to walking on the road. You know, when you are walking on the road, you want to walk facing the cars, the oncoming traffic.
Okay.
So always you need to walk on the left side of the road.
Okay.
So that you can face the oncoming traffic. So if a driver has a technical issue, a mechanical issue, and is deviating from the road coming to you, you can see and then save your life.
Perceive before it gets to you.
Excellent.
Okay.
Now, we have this, what do you call it? The one on the side of the road.
The pavement.
The pavement. That's where pedestrians are supposed to
The
use.
pedestrian walkway.
Pedestrian walkway, we call it. That's what they're supposed to use when they're walking on it. Sometimes you see them walking on the road itself. Why? Because market women have taken over the pedestrian walkway. And it makes it so difficult. So they end up walking on the road, crossing at the wrong point, and eventually you get all these pedestrian knockdowns. Again, the statistics is there to tell how many people were knocked down from January to May.
And it is grim, clearly. The stats are not very good. About the issue around the use of sirens. And in recent time, we heard about a whole brouhaha around
the MPs.
a certain ally that was before Parliament and all. What is the legal regime around the use of sirens? And you know, you may be in driving, and all of a sudden you see somebody, maybe they just turn on their hazard, and then they start tooting their horn, and they are what's the legal regime around that?
Yeah. So when it comes to the use of sirens, the law is clear. It's the executive, ambulance, fire service, and I think the police. These are the only institutions that are supposed to use sirens.
The executive,
Ambulance,
the ambulance,
fire
service,
and police.
The executive here defined as who?
The president and his entourage.
So the president, the vice president.
Yes.
Do ministers constitute a part of
No.
that executive?
No.
So it's just the president and the vice.
Yeah.
I see.
So
Where
today,
I live, I don't think the president lives there. Every morning.
You see, people think if you have money and you buy a V8, then automatically you qualify to use a siren. Recently, I heard the IG issuing orders to his men to stop anyone who is not qualified to use a siren, irrespective of your status in society.
I've seen the IG in traffic before.
Yeah.
GP1. I've seen him in traffic before. Himself staying in
Without
traffic.
using the siren.
No.
So unscrupulous people, because they have the money, they think, oh, once it's a V8, I can roll my glass up, turn my siren on, and then I'll have my way, which is wrong. Recently, I heard they were trying to pass an LI for MPs to use siren. And you can imagine the chaos that we are going to cause.
It wasn't only the MPs. It included justices of the Superior Court of Education and all of.
You can imagine the chaos.
Article 71 of his orders, just to explain.
And look at our road networks. And everybody blaring the siren and asking for you to give them way to pass and all that. how is that going to affect road traffic in our country?
So it's clear,
Yeah.
those who are supposed to use
Yes.
it. Just to conclude, and maintenance of the vehicle. And I want you to talk a bit more around the tires.
The tires.
Because those are supposed to be the wheels carrying the entire machine. And what is supposed to be the maintenance regime? How should we treat our two?
Very well. So when it comes to tire safety, it's very important that we always check our tires to see whether they are in good conditions. Because here, majority of Ghanaians cannot afford a brand new tire. So we all use the home use tires. But in using the home use tires, what are some of the things you need to look out for to ensure that the tire that I'm buying, though it's home use, is of some quality that I can use for maybe some 6 months or a year. And we need to look out for a few things when you are buying those tires. The first thing you need to look out for is the traction of the tire, whether the tire is worn out or not. And the minimum tread depth is 1.6 millimeters. So if you have that gauge to check the tread depth and it falls below 1.6 millimeter, it means it has outlived its purpose.
When you talk about the tread depth, what is it?
You see the grooves, the lines in the tire.
Yes.
Yes. These are the grooves. When they've worn out to the point that when you put the gauge in and it reads below 1.6 millimeters, it means the tire is totally gone. You shouldn't buy it.
Okay.
A brand new tire is about 8 millimeters, so you can imagine.
8?
8. So when it comes to 1.6, and that is the accepted tread depth that you can use here in our country. So if you are going to buy a tire and you don't even have that device,
Yes.
you take a 10 pesos coin,
Yeah.
insert it in the groove,
Yes.
and see if half of it will go in. If you get about half of the coin going through the groove, it means you are buying a tire which is about 1.6 millimeter tread depth. So that's one thing you need to look at, the traction.
So anything below 20% of the brand new level, because the brand new is supposed to be about 8 millimeters.
Yeah.
So if it's about 1.6, then it's about 20% of that.
Yeah.
So anything below 20%,
It's not roadworthy.
It's not roadworthy. And we learned there are different types of the tires.
Yes, so
we hear of snow tires
yes,
and all of those ones.
Yeah, so you need to look out for the tread depth. Look out for the temperature class. And in Ghana or in Africa, the best tire is temperature class A.
How do you identify
it's written on the sidewall of the tire.
The side.
Yeah, the side. You know, there are so many things written on the tire.
Okay.
So on the sidewall, look out for take your time, because sometimes it's very small. So take your time and search for it. Temperature A.
Okay.
It means it's good for our weather.
Okay.
If you don't get A, you can go for a B. If you get a B, that's also good. But A is the best.
Okay.
C. Don't go for a C, because C is for cold weather.
The temperate regions.
Temperate region. Or you see M plus S. M plus S written on the sidewall of the tire is telling you that it's a snow tire. It's not for it's for cold weather. It's not for our tropics. So you don't go for that tire. If you go for that tire, and those are the tires that has the best teeth, so to speak, best grooves and tread depth. But buy it today, and in 2 months you see all the treading.
It wears off fast.
Wears off so quickly, so fast. So please check out for the temperature class, the traction, and also whether it's a snow tire, M plus S or not.
Okay. Just close it with the maintenance regime. I mean, the car itself.
All right.
How often should we be going to the garage?
So for the garage, it depends on how you use the car. Sometimes when it comes to oil change, Somebody will tell you when you're going to change the oil, ask for this oil, when it change, it's 6 months. But that's not actually what it is. It's 6 months depending on how you are driving or using the car.
Okay.
So maybe a commercial car that goes and comes every day from 6 to maybe 6 p.m. You don't have to wait till that 6 months come. You need to check and see whether viscosity in the oil is gone, and then you replace the oil. You want to check your brake bands all the time. Whenever you hear screeching sound when you slam on the brakes, it means your bands are wearing off. You need to check and replace them. You need to check your wipers, especially in this rainy season. You don't hit the road when it starts raining before you want to buy a wiper and the guy fixes it for you on the road. You're even going to buy it very expensive. And then there's also what we call the tire rotation. If you want your tire to last longer, after every 5,000 kilometers, you want to rotate the tire. So the front left will come to the front back. The front left will come to the back left.
Okay.
And then the back left will move diagonal to the front right. And then the front right will come back to the back right. And then the back right will go diagonal to the left, front left.
Say that one again. say that one again.
So when you want to rotate your tires,
Yes.
front left will come to back left. Then back left will go to front right, diagonal.
Yes.
Then front right will come to back right, and then back right will go to front left, diagonal.
Understood. Understood.
And when you rotate your tire every 5,000 kilometers, the tires stay longer before they wear off.
Wow. It's been an interesting conversation. I don't know about you, I've learned a lot. And we've been helped significantly by Mr. Ezra Kwanzaa, who is an assistant planning manager responsible for regulatory inspection and compliance at the National Road Safety Authority. At this space, he will become a substantive planning manager very soon. My name is Benjamin Ofeado. This has been Let's Talk About. We've been talking about the Christian and road safety. From the conversations we've had, it looks as though the entire country is a crime scene. But you, as a Christian, that's why you need to let your light shine before men, so they may see your good deeds and give glory to your Father in heaven. So don't be like everybody else in the crime scene. Be the different person. Have a good night, and let's meet same time next week.